It is Saturday morning around 9:30 Athens time. That would make it 9:30 Kiev time, 10:30 Moscow time on this Saturday. And I've got another update as to what's going on in Ukraine. As with all my videos that I do in the morning, I put this disclaimer, which is that as the day goes along, a lot of things can change. Everything is changing, it seems, by the hour, by the minute. So this is just an update as to how things are going right now in the morning on a Saturday in Athens, and we share the same time zone as Kiev. So I'm going to give a roundup as to what has been going on over the past couple of days. We're on day 3 now of what has been called by Russia, Putin, the special operation, what is being dubbed by the Western mainstream media as the invasion of Ukraine. And I said in my last video yesterday that we need to be looking at two things, and that was Kiev and the 60,000 troops who are on the east of Ukraine, mostly the Azov battalion, which was shelling Donbass and Lugansk, one of the things that actually triggered this war. And we have some updates there. Kiev is encircled now. There are reports of gunfire and explosions taking place, though no one can really verify what exactly is going on. The Zelensky government yesterday decided to arm citizens in Kiev. He came out with a statement and said that Kiev must fight. Kiev cannot be allowed to fall. And reports are that he is still in the city as well. But arming the civilian population, they were handing out rifles and guns like candy, is how they described it. They were giving it away like candy. And that turned out to be a really, really bad idea. I understand the reasons for it. The reasons aren't to protect against the Russian military. The reasons to hand out weapons to the people are to get some sort of, to get the optics going, where you have civilians perhaps firing, untrained civilians, not trained to use a gun at all, firing at military, and then the military would be obliged to fire back. And you know, you get the media narrative and the optics from that. It's a very cynical, very disgusting, cynical plan. They shouldn't do it, but they did it anyway. The blowback from that, though, is if you go to, let me grab a seat over here. If you go to once again Gonzalo Lira's Telegram, he's in Kiev. He's hunkered down in a hotel in Kiev. And he's just kind of writing this out. I'll put the link to his Telegram down below. I'll pin it as a comment. But he's getting reports, from what I understand, anecdotal reports, but he's getting it from multiple sources that are saying that the handing out of rifles to civilians has actually resulted in civilians now turning against each other for various reasons. I mean, you know, people are now using the weapons that they've just acquired to go after one another, to go after their neighbors. This is just crazy stuff. You know, once again, you're giving guns to people that are not trained to use guns, and that's just a bad idea all around. So you have that, and you know, it seems like it's just going to be a matter of hours or days until Kiev falls. The United States has offered to evacuate Zelensky. They have offered to evacuate Zelensky and get him out of the city. So I think that signals that the U.S. also understands that Zelensky's in trouble and that Kiev is going to fall within hours. You get mixed reports of, to be quite honest, the fog of war. You get reports that there are various Ukrainians that are that are fighting the Russians, citizens that are fighting the Russians in Kiev. You also have reports saying that there are a lot of residents who are actually providing intel to the Russians as well as to where Ukraine forces are stationed around, where they're positioned around the city as well, because they're waiting for this, what they call the liberation. Just a lot of fog of war, man. Just a lot of fog of war. And it's interesting that there's a lot of fog of war because everything is open. Internet's working, mobile's working, electricity's working, water, everything. The Russians took great care to not target any of that infrastructure and to signal their goal. This is the Russians' goal, is to signal to the people that this is a war that's not against you, it's against the coup government, what the Russians call the neo-Nazification of Ukraine. So it's against this neo-Nazi class that they've specified. And you got a lot of good commentary on that from Scott Ritter, military analyst, perhaps the best when it comes to analyzing the situation, he's outlined that. I'll put a link to his video as well, where he outlines that Russia has actually gone in very, very soft into Ukraine. This is not a shock and awe kind of operation. There's a police officer right there. It's kind of noisy. Let me move. Whenever you sit down or you walk around to do videos, it's like you don't pull out your camera and everything's quiet and you're like, this is a great time to do videos. And then the minute you sit down or you stop somewhere to do a video, people just congregate around you, it seems. It's really, really weird. Anyway, let me find a quiet spot to sit down because I want to pull up some articles and relay them to you guys. But what was I saying? Yeah, so Scott Ritter was outlining how this is a very soft operation in that the Russians went in with a specific goal to remove this coup government, what they consider to be a coup government, an illegitimate government, and this denazification mission that they've set out. But they're very, very, very aware that they need to show the people of Ukraine that this is not targeted at them. And so they've left everything intact, and they've taken great care to make sure that none of the internet and the water and the electricity were to go out, and they were not going to target any of that because they didn't want panic from the people. They wanted people to still be able to communicate with family, friends, loved ones, etc. They didn't want widespread panic to ensue, to the detriment of the Russian military, because it would have been easy to take out all these installations, and it would have probably made the taking of Kiev, the taking of Ukraine, a lot easier, but they decided not to. The Russians have also gone in. We've got some really good indications as to the strength of the forces that have actually gone into Ukraine and the speed with which they've been operating. The mainstream media narrative, the Western mainstream media narrative, is that this operation was moving slow, and that's false. This operation is actually moving very, very fast. It's actually pretty incredible what the Russian military has accomplished in just a matter of days, given the size of the forces that they've allocated to this operation. And just to give you guys some comparison, and I was looking over some military analysis on this, and when you looked at Iraq, and when the U.S. went into Iraq, they had to cover a country that is half the size of Ukraine, probably more than half the size of Ukraine. They had to encounter a military that was much weaker than Ukraine's, and they were going after a country, they were invading a country that was cut off from any outside support as well. The United States makes sure that none of the allies that it's working with or any countries in the region were going to provide Iraq with any type of intelligence or any type of help as they were going to go in. So, Iraq was completely on its own, no assistance whatsoever. And so they covered around 450 kilometers by the time they entered the country to get to Baghdad and to take that city. It took the U.S. military 300,000 soldiers plus, and it took them a little over 3 weeks, around 20, 21, 22 days to complete the mission. And as they were rolling through Iraq, they did take the policy of making sure they took out all types of communication, electricity, water, infrastructure. So they made sure that they knocked down all of that stuff as they were rolling into the city towards Baghdad. This operation from the Russians is, from what the understanding that we're getting from U.S. intelligence as well, is this is around 30 to 50,000 troops, a force of 30 to 50,000, so much less than the 300,000. They're covering a territory, like I said, that's much bigger than Iraq, and they're also going up against a country that is getting significant help from the outside. So, obviously the Ukraine military is getting assistance from the U.S. They're getting a lot of intelligence from the U.S., that goes without a doubt. From the U.K., they're getting assistance from Poland. There are a lot of reports saying that the Ukraine military was able to get some drones and some aircraft moved over to Poland, which they could then bring back into the country. So Poland is kind of being used as a little bit of a staging ground for the Ukraine military. So they're getting aid and assistance there. Not to mention they're getting, whatever money, grants, loans from the outside as well. Anyway, all of that aside, the Russians are doing this. They've reached the capital of a much bigger country, getting assistance from the outside, with less than 50,000 troops, and without taking out any of the communications, electricity, internet, water, any of that stuff. So, I mean, the speed of the Russian military has been absolutely astonishing. They've done this all within a matter of 2 to 3 days. So that just gives everybody a little bit of perspective as to the efficiency, the precision of this Russian military. And I'm sure it has a lot of military analysts in the U.S., studying this and looking at this and kind of taking notes. What else do I want to say? Okay, so that's what's going on there. So we're seeing Kiev surrounded. I think it's pretty clear cut that the government of Zelensky's going to fall within the hours, within the days. Who knows, but it's going to fall. The fact that the U.S. has offered to evacuate him is a clear signal that that's about to happen. What's going on the east? The other thing that I said we need to look out for yesterday in my video was what's going on in the east of Ukraine. What we understand is that the Azov battalion, this neo-Nazi battalion in the east that was shelling Donetsk and Lugansk, they're pretty much surrounded. You have the Russian forces have almost sealed up that cauldron. They've left some areas are still left open for the Ukraine militia to move back from their positions and to retreat, but all of that is closing down, and pretty much that cauldron, if it's not already sealed up by now, by the time I'm doing this video, it will be soon. And the Azov battalion and the military forces are going to be pinned down in East Ukraine. They've got the Donetsk and Lugansk militias moving west. They've got the Russians coming south and north. They've pretty much sealed that cauldron up, like a snake kind of choking off its prey. And they're going to have to make a decision. Those 60,000 troops are going to either have to surrender or they're going to have to be annihilated. And I think the common thinking there from just about every analyst, whether they're Russian-based analysts or U.S. Western-based analysts, is that the Azov battalion military is going to fight. They're going to fight till the very end. And the regular Ukraine military, that is in East Ukraine is going to surrender. So that's the situation there. Once that happens, once that military is defeated or has surrendered, you pretty much effectively have the end of the Ukraine ground forces for the most part, and all you're left with is Kiev and probably the west of Ukraine, Lviv, and these areas, which I think is going to be actually quite tricky, because that's where the supporters of Bandera, that's where these neo-Nazi forces that the Russian government is saying they're targeting, that's where they're located. That's their capital city. So I don't really know if the leaders of like, the Azov battalion and the right sector and all these groups, these neo-Nazi paramilitary groups, I don't know if they've left Ukraine altogether, if they've fled and they've gone to say Poland or Romania or neighboring countries, or if they're hunkered down in Lviv, but we'll see. Once Kiev falls, you'll pretty much have most of Ukraine captured. With the West, I leave a question mark. Another question mark is Odessa in the south. There haven't been many reports around Odessa. That the Russian military captured the island. That's off the coast. We know that. And they captured it without a fight. There were reports that there was a fight and there was a battle going on there and resistance. That turned out to not be true. They pretty much captured that island with the military surrendering. So we have that. Odessa, we'll wait and see what the reports are there. But once Kiev falls, I'm sure Odessa, which is a Russian-speaking city, will surrender as well. And that's the situation with the two things that we have to see, and we're going to have to monitor throughout the day. The other thing that I want to talk about are the sanctions. And so we have sanctions against Putin, Lavrov, and pretty much everyone in the Russian Security Council. The U.S. has now sanctioned them. The EU has sanctioned them. Canada has come out with a statement saying that they're also sanctioning Putin as well. What does this mean? Practically speaking, it doesn't mean anything. Putin, Lavrov, all these guys, they don't have any assets in the West anyway. And if they did, they were removed a long time ago. So practically speaking, it doesn't mean anything. Anyone that's doing business, say with Putin or his inner circle, they won't be able to do business, but I don't think that means anything either. Travel restrictions are a little fuzzy right now. We don't have a clear readout if it means that Putin and Lavrov can't travel abroad or can't go on diplomatic meetings or missions. We don't know. I think that'll clear up as well. But it doesn't really mean anything from a practical standpoint. From a diplomatic standpoint, a geopolitical standpoint, it just means that the West is completely now cut off relations with Russia. It's over. We have seen the death of the unipolar world order. We've seen the death of globalism, and we've now entered a multipolar world. You cannot have globalism without Russia. Just look at a map and you understand that. So globalism is dead. China is also supporting Russia. India said that they're not going to weigh in on this. Serbia, Vučić came out with a statement and said that he's not going to impose sanctions on Russia, though he's not going to. Serbia is not going to recognize Donetsk and Lugansk. It's not going to follow the EU's lead. Serbia is not in the EU, so they have no reason to follow the EU's lead, but they probably underwent a lot of pressure to do so. But at the end of the day, Vučić said, we're not getting involved in this. We have brotherly relations with Russia and with Ukraine, and we're going to leave it at that. So look, you have Asia, the Middle East, Latin America. They're not following along with all of this. So what you are seeing is, you don't have globalism anymore. You just have Atlanticism. You have Europe, the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And that's it. That's what you have. NATO, EU, and the United States. That's essentially what you have going on now with regards to all the sanctions and the way the world has now been split up and divided. So globalism is dead. Globalism is dead. The unipolar moment is dead. And Zelensky said in a speech that you do have now an Iron Curtain coming up. And he's right about that. You do have an Iron Curtain coming up. Putin made comments that, by the way, sanctioning a world leader is considered by Russia a very hostile act. And so we'll see how Russia responds to that, the retaliation. Putin said in a statement, and I quote, this was a statement that's going around, take the power into your own hands. This is what the Russian president said. He was talking to the Ukraine military, by the way. This is a stream of consciousness video. I mean, I'm just kind of spitting out everything that I have on my mind. So I apologize for the structure of it. It's kind of all over the place. Putin was speaking to the Ukraine military. And he said, quote, take the power into your own hands. He said, it's better negotiating with a partner rather than a bunch of drug addicts and neo-Nazis. And Putin claimed to have Nazis who Putin claimed have entrenched themselves in Kiev and have been holding the people hostage. He also called on the military to take over from Zelensky in order to stop the arming of citizens, which Putin called out as the Zelensky government, quote, using the children and wives of loved ones as human shields in this conflict. So he called out the arming of citizens. But what an interesting statement from Putin. I mean, my God, it just shows that the gloves are completely off. The world now is split, completely split and divided. He called them drug addicts and neo-Nazis. That's what he called the Ukraine government. And I think there's no doubt that the use of the word drug addicts was a jab, an intentional jab at Hunter and Biden. I think that goes without a doubt. And Zelensky as well. There are rumors that Zelensky is rumors that he's a party guy. It wouldn't be out of the question. I mean, he's an entertainer. He was an actor, so the fact that he parties hard, I don't think that would be so shocking. But that's just a side note. So that was Putin's statement. And the sanctions now. The sanctions, Canada said that they're sanctioning Russia as well. The Johnson government, one sec. The UK and the Johnson government said that they're going to be pushing hard to get Russia out of SWIFT. And Canada says they support that as well. Getting Russia out of SWIFT would effectively, in my opinion, be the end of the USD. And that would do terrible damage to the United States. The Fed is urging Biden not to go down that route because that would be the end of the USD, and that would deliver what would probably be a decisive blow to the United States, and China's definitely pushing for that. There's no doubt that China's probably looking on at all of this and saying, you know, this is turning out better than we could have imagined. I really don't know why the UK and Canada are pushing for SWIFT. They must know that removing Russia from SWIFT would effectively kill the US dollar. So I don't know if it's just stupidity in the leadership. I don't know if they're posturing. This could just be, you know, fake posturing on behalf of the UK and Canada. And they know that removing Russia from SWIFT is not going to happen, at least in the short term. But that's what you have on the sanctions front. Russia has slowed down Facebook. We have that as well. And Facebook has come out with a statement saying that they're banning Russian media from monetizing their platform. Nick Clegg, the communications director of Facebook, also said that Facebook is encouraging Russian citizens to continue to use the platform in order to protest. Isn't it interesting that with the truckers in Canada, big tech and social media was openly attacking the protesters, going so far as to starve off any type of funding that they get using big tech or social media. And they were shadow banning and outright censoring tweets and posts that were in support of the truckers in Canada. But now you have Nick Clegg of Facebook openly encouraging Russian citizens to get out and protest the Russian government. It's just an interesting, when you put those two situations side by side, it's really interesting to see that play out. The protests in Russia, they were very small. A latest polling number says that around, I believe it was 76% of the Russian population supports what Putin is doing. Putin's approval rating sits at around 67, 68% right now. 5% of the Russian population was against what Putin is doing. And it was a very small group of people that were protesting in Moscow and in St. Petersburg. I've been to both of those areas. And, you know, these are big cities. They have huge squares. I mean, these squares are massive. And the number of people there, like say about a couple of thousand, is really nothing when you look at a city like St. Petersburg, which has a population of 6 million, and a city like Moscow, which, you know, all of Moscow, greater Moscow, you're talking about, you know, 20 million people, 15 at the low end, 20 million at the high end. I've seen protests supporting Navalny that were actually bigger. So these were really small protests. The polling numbers are very clear on this. And these are polling, you know, numbers coming out from Western organizations as well. Putin's approval is pretty solid, is rock solid, and Biden wishes he had Putin's approval rating. And the Russian people are firmly behind this operation, because got to remember, while the U.S. sees this in the context of 2 or 3 days, this operation, the Russians see this as in the context of 8 years. You know, they've seen 15, 20,000 Russian speakers in the East Ukraine die over 8 years. They've seen their language prohibited in Ukraine. They've seen their religion prohibited. They've seen their media channels censored. They've seen opposition parties that are friendly to Russia imprisoned. So they see this in the context of 8 days. The U.S. media sees this in the context of, you know, a matter of months or even days, to be quite honest. And the sanctions, you know, I wanted to say something about the sanctions. All the sanctions that are being levied right now, I mean, they've pretty much done everything at this point in time, all the way to sanctioning the president of Russia. So, you know, SWIFT is the only thing that's left. And if they decide to pull the trigger on SWIFT, which would just leave me completely baffled, if they do that, honestly, that is the end of the USD and the petrodollar. And I mean, that is the end. It's over. And I just can't imagine. I mean, I know the Fed is telling Biden, don't do this. I'm sure the U.S. has a lot of analysts who are saying, don't go there. But, you know, sometimes the ideology, these people are such ideologues that maybe they will pull the trigger. You know, who knows? The sanctions are going to definitely destroy Europe. Europe is cooked. You know, Germany is cooked. The gas is still flowing. There's a point that I want to bring up. Keep in mind that you have all these sanctions going out there. I mean, they've sanctioned everything. There's nothing more they can sanction really at this point. But the gas is still flowing. The gas is still flowing to Europe, and it's flowing through the Ukraine pipelines, and it's flowing through the other pipelines, Nord Stream 1, for example. If and when Russia does take Ukraine, Russia's going to have those pipelines, so there's no need to have Nord Stream 2 anyway. Whatever money Russia spent on Nord Stream 2, they've made it back. I've actually read reports and analysis done on this saying that Russia has made back all the money that was spent on Nord Stream 2, because the price of oil now is over 100. You know, the energy prices are just soaring, and Russia's just cleaning up there. The Russian reserves, their gold reserves, have now hit 650 billion. They're in surplus. They have the lowest debt, one of the lowest debts in the world, something like, you know, 18% to GDP, just extremely low. And once they take over Ukraine, you know, they're going to have full dominance of resources and commodities and pipelines into Europe. Full dominance, full. They're going to hold all the cards, and they don't need Nord Stream 2. They're going to have the Ukraine pipeline. They're going to fix it up. You know, it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of maintenance, but they're going to fix it up, and they're going to have full dominance, full. And people aren't reporting that. And what I think is going to happen is that all of these sanctions that a lot of them are meant to deliver, you know, short to medium-term pain. Don't listen to, you know, when Biden says this is going to deliver long-term pain. No, these sanctions are meant to deliver short and medium-term pain. What you're going to see the Russians do is they're going to play the long game. And the pain that they're going to deliver is going to be protracted. And it's going to be like just dialing up and dialing down the pain when they wish. And a lot of that pain is going to be delivered on Europe. And what you're going to probably see is a recession and a collapse in Germany. And that's due to the fact that, that Angela Merkel, my opinion is that Angela Merkel was the chancellor. She did a terrible job, and I was not in support whatsoever of Angela Merkel. But if she was in Germany running things, I don't think we would have reached this point. I really don't. But you have the Greens running the government, and then you have someone like Olaf Scholz, who's a good guy, but he's way out of his depth. And, they really, really messed up. They really messed up, and Germany's going to pay a very, very heavy price for all of this, and Europe's going to pay a very heavy price. Don't be under any illusions. Once Russia has Ukraine, and they're going to put a government that's friendly to them, and they're going to control that government, once they have that in place, it is full dominance over energy, commodity, food, you name it, with regards to Europe. And that pain's going to be felt by the U.S. as well, but not to the degree of Europe. Which leads me to my last point. The best thing for the EU and for the U.S. to do now is to stop, the sanctions and the rhetoric, sit back and just let this play out. And there's nothing you can do at this point. There really is nothing you can do. It's a done deal. Russia's going to get Ukraine, and just like the Obama administration overthrew the government and they put their guys in place in Ukraine, and their thought was that they're going to get Ukraine, to be some sort of bulwark against Russia and destabilize Putin. That didn't work out. And the U.S. has now moved over to plan B or C, which is to say that the U.S. has said, we're abandoning Ukraine, and our next objective is to remove Russia from the West, to remove Russia from Europe. And they've accomplished that. So, at this point in time, there's really not much you can do. Don't go after SWIFT. If the United States don't do it, because that would be the end of the USD. So don't do that. Put a stop to the sanctions. You've done what you're going to do. Russia's been, removed from Europe. You've severed that relationship. Europe's going to go through a lot of pain now. Europe's going to be wholly dependent on the United States now, period. It's over. Europe is now a complete vassal of the U.S. And, Nord Stream 2 was canceled, and you've accomplished your goals there. So, that's that. There's nothing much left to do. NATO's been revitalized, and now a lot of money is going to go into NATO, so the military-industrial complex is going to have a really nice windfall. This is just my opinion of what I see going on. But that's it. That's it. The U.S., to a certain degree, they've accomplished a lot of the goals that they wanted to accomplish. Americans are going to feel a lot of pain in their pocketbooks. But Russia's been essentially removed from Europe. And I think that was, a plan B or C scenario. Ukraine being used as some bulwark to destabilize Putin didn't work out. And a government is going to be favorable to Putin, is going to be put in place. And so your next option, which you've successfully accomplished, is this option of getting Russia out of Europe once and for all and making Europe into a complete vassal of the U.S. So, that's been accomplished. There's not much left to be done, to be quite honest, outside of SWIFT. The pain that Russia is going to inflict on Europe, and you'll have some of that collateral to the U.S., but really the pain they're going to inflict on Europe in the medium and long term, in my opinion, is going to be absolutely devastating. It's going to be devastating. And not military. I'm not talking from a military perspective. I'm talking from an economic resource perspective. It's going to be asymmetric and devastating. The final point that I want to say, has been a long video, but hopefully I won't have to do any other updates to get up. So this will be a one-off, hopefully, for the rest of the day, and then we'll see how things play out. But the last thing that, gosh, what did I want to say? You see, I forgot what I wanted to say. Anyway, if I remember it, I'll do an update on it. It's for Europe, this is not good at all. Europe is going to come out the really, really big loser in all of this. Why they went down this path, I really don't know. Why didn't Macron or Scholz just bypass the US and say, look, we don't care what Biden is saying with regards to NATO and Ukraine. We're going to underwrite this. Mr. Putin, we're going to underwrite the fact that Ukraine is never getting into NATO. And that's what they should have done, and this would have been all over. That's the honest truth, but they didn't do it, and I don't know why they didn't do it. And they're going to bring the demise of Europe is coming. That's my feeling on things. Europe is going to really hurt. Because like I said, the Russians are going to... Oh, this is what I wanted to say. The strategy of all the sanctions at once, kind of vomiting those sanctions, which is what we're seeing. We're seeing the U.S. and Europe in a matter of days just throwing all their sanctions all at once, just kind of vomiting everything out there. I think it's just damn stupid. I mean, they're doing it for optics and for PR, if you want my opinion. The effect is going to be, once again, the effect is going to hurt Europe more than anything. But they vomited everything out, and I think that's just such a terrible strategy. The Russians are not going to roll out their sanctions at once. They're going to roll them out week after week, month after month. Once the dust settles and all of this is over, which is going to probably be in the next couple of days, over the next 6 months, you're just going to see the Russians start to, turn that dial of pain up for Europe. And, the Russians have said they're going to hit the weak points, and that's what they're going to do. And I just thought it was just such a bad strategy from the Biden administration and from the Europeans to just throw out all their sanctions all at once. So they throw all their cards on the table. And it's predictable, but it's just not a good strategy. They would have been better off if they tapered everything and rolled out those sanctions over a longer period of time. But they didn't. And a lot of the reasons why they do that is because, the U.S. and the West, they run on 24-hour media cycles. Everything's consumed quickly. The markets, the stock markets, are running on short cycles. The elections on short cycles. And so, all of this is just being thrown out there real quick. By the way, the markets, crypto, I looked at crypto this morning. Bitcoin is nearing 40,000 USD, so it's starting to climb up. I just think the markets have adjusted to everything, it appears, and they've also accepted the fact that within a matter of days, Ukraine is going to be under Russian control, and all the sanctions are pretty much out there. The only question mark is SWIFT, and that's that. So the markets have adjusted as well. Just always remember, the gas is still flowing to Europe. That's a key point. All the sanctions and all the rhetoric that you're hearing, just always keep in mind that the gas is still flowing. And why would the Russians cut off the gas anyway? They're making money off of this, and that's their leverage. And they're going to have a lot more leverage when they take over Kiev. Travel as well. They're going to start closing the skies to aircraft coming from the UK. They've done it. Poland, Czech Republic said they're going to close their airspace. Bulgaria. The Russians are going to start to do the same. So anyway, this is a long video, but hopefully that'll be we'll see. Hopefully it'll be the one update that I have for today. And let's just all monitor the situation and see what happens with Kiev and those 60,000 Ukraine soldiers in the east. All right, guys, theduran.locals.com. Check out my channel, check out Duran's channel. Definitely go to Alexander's channel as well. He'll be putting up an update later on in the day. And I'm out. Take care.